moves, it will dishonor the Pope himself. That's what Commandant Schmid warned before the funeral began. But as the coffin of Pope Francis emerged into St. Peter's Square, one guard did move, stepping forward with something no one expected, and leaving the entire Vatican stunned. So what was hidden beneath his uniform? Before we reveal it, press the subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. The polished black boots of Lance Corporal Lucas Baumann remained perfectly still against the ancient stones of St. Peter's Square. His Swiss Guard uniform, that distinctive swirl of blue, red and yellow, stood in stark contrast to the sea of mourning blacks and purples surrounding him. The morning sun caught the edge of his halberd, sending occasional flashes of light across the sombre gathering. Dawn had broken reluctantly over the Vatican that day. A chill hung in the air, unseasonable for late April, though fitting somehow for the occasion. Mist clung to the cobblestones in patches, like fragments of night unwilling to surrender to morning light. As if the world itself was reluctant to begin this day, the day they would bury Pope Francis. By 8 a.m., the square had filled beyond capacity. World leaders sat in reserved sections, solemn-faced in dark suits and formal clothes. Behind them stretched a tapestry of humanity, the faithful with rosaries moving between weathered fingers, tourists with cameras hanging unused around their necks, nuns dabbing at eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Lucas kept his gaze fixed forward, his breathing measured beneath the weight of his breastplate. 14 years of service in the Swiss Guard had perfected his ability to remain motionless for hours, his face betraying nothing of the thoughts that might stir beneath the surface. Even on this day, perhaps especially on this day, his discipline would not falter. Or so everyone thought. From somewhere inside the basilica, organ music began. Low, mournful notes that seemed to vibrate through the very stones. The crowd stilled. The procession was beginning. First came altar servers with candles and incense, their young faces solemn beneath the weight of tradition. Then priests in white, bishops in purple, cardinals in deep crimson. A river of colour and sacred symbolism flowing from the basilica's depths. And finally, the coffin. Simple cypress, as Francis had requested. No gold ornamentation, no elaborate carvings. Just a wooden box bearing the crucifix, carried by 8 pallbearers in black. As it emerged into daylight, Lucas felt something press against, his father would say, magnifying glass pressed to his eye. The space between seconds. Times, late at night, Lucas would wind it carefully before kneeling to pray. But behind that mask, his mind had drifted to another conversation, another room, another promise. Visual perfection, Schmid was saying now, his voice hardening. If even one guard moves, it will be the only thing the world remembered from this day. A muscle in Lucas's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Schmid stopped directly in front of him, studying him with narrowed eyes. Something to say, Baumann? No, sir. Perfect, immediate, respectful. Schmid nodded and moved on, but not before giving Lucas a final, lingering look, the kind veteran officers give when their instincts prickle without clear cause. As the guards filed out toward their positions, an older officer caught Lucas by the elbow just for a moment and leaned in. Remember who you served today, Baumann. Instead, he'd moved 15 feet from his position and lifted the child above the crowd until a frantic mother pushed through. A minor breach, quickly corrected, barely noticed, except by the Pope. 2 days later, a Vatican aide had appeared at the guards' barracks with a message. His Holiness requests Lance Corporal Baumann's presence alone. Lucas had followed the aide through the Apostolic Palace's labyrinthine corridors to a modest study where Pope Francis sat, not behind his desk, but in a simple chair by the window. Afternoon light streamed in, catching the dust motes in the air. "Your Holiness," Lucas had said, bowing deeply. "Sit, please," Francis replied, gesturing to the chair opposite his. His voice carried the slight rasp of age, but retained its distinctive warmth, using his words carefully. "The child was in distress. So are many who come here," Francis carried. "It's necessary, of course, but dangerous, where we say goodbyes twice. Once for the body, once for the soul." A quiet, watchful presence in the papal apartments. "It's rather unusual," Ventresca began, glancing around as if concerned. Lucas waited until he was alone in his quarters, sitting on the edge of his narrow bed, before breaking the seal. "The letter, no one is watching. The world will tell you that discipline rising above the square." Lucas watched the coffin's slow progression down the steps. Behind it walked the papal household, secretaries, attendants, long. The moment crystallized around him like ice forming on a still pond. Sudden, silent, transformative. That for a heartbeat it almost seemed planned. From within his uniform he withdrew the letter. Pale parchment. Several cups. Eminence. "That changes nothing. It changes bells." Pope, no recording, no clock on the wall, no moment. The entire assembly wondered. Would he remove the letter? Acknowledge it somehow? He'd yielded to something more shifted. It was the smallest gesture. Approximately 50 and on next afternoon.